Hello everybody, Cal Banyan's Hypnosis, etc. How you doing? Here we are for another podcast of Hypnosis, etc. Mostly we talk about hypnosis, but sometimes we talk about some other stuff. But today we're going to be hardcore talking about age regression stuff. And by the way, if you're watching this video anywhere except calbanyan.com, you want to go there because right below this podcast, right down there, is very important content, including graphics and links and stuff like that, that makes this podcast much more valuable. Plus, over 250 other podcasts where you can listen and watch and all that kind of stuff. But most important, you need to know that I have with me today Meredith Locker. She's here for the 4th episode in a row. She's been rubbing her hands, getting ready. She's ready to dig in, give me a hard time with some questions and all that kind of stuff. Then I'll tell you why I take this kind of mistreatment from her. Because she is a Hypno 1%er. She really knows what she's doing. She's helped so many clients in so many ways, and I'm just doggone proud of her. How you doing, Meredith?
I'm doing so good, Cal. I want to make sure that everybody knows who you are, even though I'm pretty sure they do. But just in case, he absolutely is the trainer that trains the best of the best, the top of the top 1% of the entire hypnosis world. He's the one that brought us 5-Path, the one-on-one process that I use with all my clients, 7th Path Self-Hypnosis. He's brought us all these books, all these podcasts, so many articles. He just keeps on talking at all these NGH workshops, conventions. He's, my mentor, and he's Cal Banyan. And thank you, Cal.
And I'm so proud of you and Elron and Celeste, who are going to be speaking at the National Guild of Hypnotists Solid Gold Weekend. Of course, I've been talking about that ad nauseum, but I just can't get over it. It's just such a coup that all of us are going to be there, and it's going to be fun. So you guys out there in Hypnoland, if you've ever thought of going to the National Guild of Hypnotists Solid Gold Weekend, this is going to be the best one ever. You can hang out with Meredith. You can hang out with Elron. You can hang out with Celeste. And yes, you can even hang out with me. We're going to have a stupendous time. Isn't that right, Meredith?
We are. It's going to be really fun. I hope you guys are going to join us. And if you do, please come up, say hi, introduce yourself. Would love to get to know you guys.
You're going to be talking about overcoming client resistance, and I'm going to be talking about making moolah. Hypno moolah.
Yay!
Yay. All right, how are you going to quiz me today?
Well, today, we've been doing all these podcasts on forgiveness of others and forgiveness of self, and it's time to get it back to the big deal, the meat of what we do, and bring it back to age regression. So, we've covered this a lot in a lot of different ways, but it seems like because it is so meaty, it is so important that there's just never enough coverage of it, right, Cal? So, but first, I'm sure everybody would be a little interested to know, a little bit of how you got interested in age regression, how it became the meat of your process.
It was really age regression that most interested me in the world of hypnosis. This idea of just direct suggestion hypnosis, in the early days of my development and interest in the career, going all the way back to the mid-70s, and even by knowing my uncle who was a hypnotist, from like childhood, the stuff that I thought was the coolest was the taking people back to an earlier time in their life. And gosh, it had something to do with me deciding to study psychology. And when I went and got my bachelor's degree in psychology, I was thinking, wow, now I'm going to really find out how to do hypnosis and age regression, all that good stuff. And I was rather disappointed that even in all my training, hypnosis, particularly age regression, I was really relegated to a footnote in the history of psychology, sometime around Freud. So then I applied to graduate school and I got my master's degree. And all the time I'm getting my master's degree, I'm thinking, boy, now I'm going to learn the insider tips, tricks, and techniques and how to use hypnotherapy to change people's lives. Nothing, nada, zilch, zero, zed. Nothing about hypnosis more than what I really got in undergraduate school. So then I applied and got into the PhD program, and same thing. I learned that one of the professors practiced hypnosis, but didn't do any classes on it or anything like that, and so I was bummed. And later on, I moved to Minneapolis, from up there in beautiful Grand Forks, North Dakota, where the University of North Dakota is. And just had a chance to reevaluate my approach to go from that talk therapy into doing hypnosis. And my passion was really to learn about age regression hypnosis. And out of that, I studied live training, certification courses, videos, books, and really it was a core ingredient in the development of 5-Path, in which age regression is really what constitutes phase 2. And then also phase 1 is really preparing the person to go into that deep level of hypnosis so that they can experience a reliable revivification, which is age regression of the past events that have to do with why they caused the problem. Hey, Meredith, what did you know about or think about age regression hypnosis before you got into the world of doing it yourself, becoming a hypnotherapist?
Yeah, well, through my training in psychology, I knew nothing about it because, like you, wasn't covered, didn't get into it. It wasn't something that was part of the curriculum. And honestly, I didn't even know what I was missing out on because unlike you, I didn't have kind of a dabbling in the world of hypnosis prior to my psychology training. But after I was trained in psychology and while living life, I actually had some of my own challenges that I wanted to overcome using hypnosis. And so I went and saw a hypnotherapist, and she did use age regression on me, and it was hugely powerful in shifting some things for me, some various things for me. But she used a much more pared down, simplistic version of the age regression that you teach. And so, it's interesting that even as simplistic as it was, it did create profound changes for me. But as I experienced and as I help clients experience the age regression that you teach, I see how much more thorough and reinforcing and complete the version that you teach is, because there definitely are a lot of different ways to do it that are being taught and being promoted out there. Isn't that true?
Right, and as I tell everybody, hypnosis and hypnotherapy and age regression is not brain surgery. And even simple forms of age regression or simple forms of forgiveness work or even direct suggestion work can have profound change. So a word of the wise out there, and that is, if you're certified, use what you've got, go out there and make a change. Don't procrastinate. And here's something else that is really important that from what Meredith just said and what I just said. Do you notice how she went and she studied psychology, different place than I went? She noticed that I stayed all the way up through PhD program, and you know what? Nothing of significance about hypnosis training. This means something very important, and that is psychologists, by virtue of their psychological training, are not uniquely qualified to help people with hypnosis. Even psychologists, psychiatrists, medical doctors, social workers, and counselors, I could go on, typically have to go outside of their field of training to become certified or to become effective in the use of hypnosis. So just because you're a MD, just because you're a PhD in clinical psychology, it does not uniquely qualify you to do hypnosis. And for you guys that have been in my courses, you know that we have the doctors, we have the psychologists, we have the counselors, the social workers, all in there taking the course, along with other people who don't have that kind of training and background. It really has to do with your own personal determination to become good at what we do. Ah, boy. There's another one of my tirades. Go ahead there, Meredith.
All right, well, I think we're ready to dig into some more questions, get even deeper into age regression, because we know, I think that we could spend a lifetime learning age regression and how to deal with all the variations that come up. I think we're going to continue to do that, and so let's keep helping people to be prepared. So first of all, I want to reference the 10 keys to age regression that Cal and I did, podcasts number 108 to 114. We did 7, that's 1 through 7. We did 7 podcasts on age regression alone. So you can get a lot of basis for what we're talking about. If you are not understanding what we're talking about, you can go back back and listen to those. And we've really done, I mean, probably hundreds of our 200 something podcasts are all focused on age regression. So there's so much information at calbanyan.com. If you just scroll through, there's so many podcasts on age regression. But we're going to dig into some specific questions right here. So recently there was a post on the 5-Path group, which is, 5-Pathers post their various questions and get help from the community, which is really beautiful. And sometimes we pull questions from that to help the rest of the world to get the benefit of those questions as well. And so this particular 5-Pather did an age regression with a client, first age regression she did with this client, and the client immediately went back to 2 years old. And that was, the feeling there was familiar. And then she was able from there, using the details that we'll get into if you go back and listen to the 10 keys and more of a description about age regression. Then she goes further back to what seemed to be the initial sensitizing event, which we consider to be the root cause of the challenge in the womb. And so basically what happened in this particular scenario is there was one subsequent sensitizing event that she visited at 2 years old, and then went straight to the womb from there. And this particular hypnotherapist was a little perplexed because it was the first client she's ever had that went so young, so fast, and didn't have more older subsequent sensitizing events on the way down. So Cal, what would you say to someone who's feeling perplexed about this challenge?
Well, gosh, I hope my printer noise isn't too bad back there, but I'm printing out a graphic to help me with this. And so let's talk in general about why do age regression first of all. So age regression, particularly if we're working with an emotional kind of thing like something that's driving eating too much, drinking too much, smoking too much, or some kind of erroneous, some exaggerated fear, like a fear of heights or whatever. It started somewhere. And so I got my little hypnographic out here. And so this is a graphic I have for understanding age regression, and I'll put a copy of it down below there so I don't have to hold it up. But the idea is that all things are connected in the mind through association, and so the typically what happens is the fear that you're feeling today that's exaggerated, or the drive to eat too much or drink too much, is being motivated by a feeling inside you don't like. And in the hypnosis process, we can bring up the feeling. And then, so here we are on this little chart. And so here we are now, and we can have this grown-up client by the GU bring up the feeling and follow it back to an earlier event. Like if the client is 40 now, and they would be, in the early event, maybe 20. Now, since that isn't the ISE, Initial Sensitizing Event, it's what we call the SSE, the Subsequent Sensitizing Event. And then we can continue to take them back in time until we've identified the ISE, the Initial Sensitizing Event. Now, once we've found that, we can go before it and do work like the informed child technique and change their perceptions, like a reality check. Like if they were afraid then that something bad was going to happen, we could find out if it really, this bad thing was going to happen. And what's really cool is after we do the reality check in the ISE and change how they think about the situation, change how they feel about the situation, we can run them through it again. And once they've gone through it again, knowing what they know now, they don't have the same degree of fear, the same degree of emotion, and they don't think about it the same way. And so this is a huge shift. And then by going back to that ISE, the very beginning, ISE, then we change how they think about and feel about the situation. And what's nice is usually we've done a couple bumps back of going to like the SSE of 20, the SSE of 10, the SSE of 5, and then the SSE of like 2 or 3 years old. I mean the ISE of 2 or 3 years old. And then when we get done doing that informed child technique, we can then run them through these subsequent events again with the change that we have provided them by doing the informed child technique at the ISE. And so having all those nice SSEs enable us to reinforce the change and also to check to make sure the change has remained. So if I was doing an age regression with a client, and that client, I say, there's a feeling inside you don't like, has everything to do with why you came here today, and I bring up strong as powerful, and then I like time tunnel them back and say, imagine that feeling that you're having in your body is a tunnel to the past. Mentally go into that tunnel, follow it back to an earlier time situation you felt that way, and they go all the way back to 2, and I test it and I find out it's the ISE. Now I don't have those SSEs, subsequent sensitizing events, to run them through to reinforce the change and make sure it stays changed. So what I would do is I would say, okay, let's say the ISE is at 3 and I've changed how they perceive the situation, I've changed how they feel. I'll say, now in a moment I count from 1 to 3. When I hit 3, you'll be in a situation, 3, where you're older. I don't know, you might be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but it's going to be sometime in the near future where this insight is going to benefit you. Okay? And I can go 1, 2, 3, be there. And now we can go to an event where they can go through it with these changes. And so I can proceed that way, finding events that can, 1, reinforce the change, and I can check to make sure that the change that we made inside of them stayed in place. Now here's another thing. You heard me talk about ISEs and SSEs. There's also a thing called the SPE, the symptom producing event. Now this, clients usually will just tell you about this. I'll say, as part of my pre-hypnosis interview, I'll ask them, please give me a thumbnail sketch of the history of the problem. You know, when it started, what you've done about it, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And so I've suggested to them that they tell me when it started. Now, I know that my clients don't really know when it started, but they know when it started to be a problem for them. So like the ISE, Initial Sensitizing Event, might be 3 years old, which is typically before we can remember, before we have, you know, easy recall without the use of hypnosis. And let's say that the problem, like let's say they had an anxiety, a nervousness inside of them, a fear inside of them that really started when they were 3, but it didn't manifest as a problem that they came in to see us about until they were like 15. For example, there's the individual who at 15 years old started drinking alcohol as a way to medicate their anxiety. Well, when I asked my client who's come in for changing their drinking behavior, when did this start? Well, they would talk about that when they were 15 and they started drinking. Aha. So that is an SPE. When I take that person back to ISE, 3 years old, in addition to just telling them, let's move forward in time to events where you could use this insight and uncover some SSEs, I can also say, I want you to move forward to that time when you were 15, or when you are 15 and you're starting to drink, and I want you to bring all this knowledge, all this wisdom to that situation. So I can also direct them to go to that specific date or time. So I am able to effectively do what I would do with SSEs, which are normally uncovered during the age regression process, when I go from the ISE back to now. Is that what you're asking about, Meredith?
That is exactly what I'm asking about. And yeah, it's so important during the pre-hypnosis interview to really listen. And because most of the time your clients will give you some information that you can use, you know, the SPE or different times in their life, so that you can have some specifics to guide them to a reinforcing event in their life, you know, if they didn't bring it up on the way down. And, you know, one thing that you didn't mention is even getting into doing a FRA an FRE, a future reinforcing event. And so lots of times a person has come in because they want to resolve this because they have something coming up. And so if that's what they've talked about, that's another time you can lead them to help to reinforce. And so you bring them to a time in the future when this change will benefit them, whatever that time might be, right, Cal?
That's right. The fuzz can set you free.
Exactly.
Get the front out of here. Okay.
Okay, well, we're at 20 minutes. Do we want to get into another question at all, or do you think we're time to wrap it up?
You got one I can answer quickly?
Well, there's the one that we discussed about before. Do you think you can get into that pretty quickly about...
The dream one?
Yeah?
Ask me.
Okay, good. So, what if a person's ISE is a dream? Age 5, age 3, they had a nightmare, and that is their initial sensitizing events. What then?
Do we know in this question what happened in the dream?
I do not know specifically. I know it was very scary, and there was some threat or danger involved in the dream. That's as much as I know. All
right, good. Now, I've had this come up before. ISEs can be in a dream. How weird, huh? So it's very simple. It's handled exactly the same way you should handle any other ISE. We go back, we find the ISE, we confirm the ISE, and then we talk to the grown-up aspect of the client and say, boy, it'd be nice if you knew then what you know now, right? Because fear comes to the perception that something bad's going to happen, right? And obviously, there's nothing that can happen in a dream that can harm you or anyone you care about. So we would just have the client, the adult aspect, go back to before the ISE, tell the child aspect, 2, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, whatever it is, hey, you're going to have this thing happen, but it's a dream, and dreams are like imagination. You can't get hurt. Do you understand that? And we would give them that information, whatever they need to hear, so that they can go through the ISE without being negatively affected by it. Then once they've been convinced, we run them through the dream, and knowing that it's not real, knowing that nobody's going to be harmed, and so the fear doesn't happen because they're perceiving the whole situation differently. And so it's easy, easy, easy once you've got basic age regression techniques down. How's that, Meredith?
Good. So because it's a dream, we wouldn't do it differently than we normally would. Would you, because it's a dream, try to change history and try to change the dream, or would you treat it just like we always treat everything in age regression, where we're not changing history, we're working on the perception, the reaction, to what has happened in the history?
You know the answer to this. Tell them what they should do.
Yeah. So we would never want to change history, even if we're dealing with a dream. No matter what, we're dealing with the reaction to it. We want the little one to understand that, look, you made it through it. We want the grown-up to give the little one the knowledge that the grown-up has now. And the truth is that that child made it through that dream, and that dreams are just dreams, and that we are going to have dreams, and it doesn't have to affect our life. We don't have to change the dream or change what happened in the dream to allow that child to feel more secure in that experience. So we would never change history. We never do, we never will, whether dream or not. All right, anything else you want to tell everybody, Cal?
I just want to confirm what you're saying. When you're doing age regression, you go to the ISE, you do not change what happened. You don't have them hallucinate that something different happened, because that it just doesn't work that good, because they know at every level of their consciousness how it really happened. And for you to suggest that it happened differently is just not all that effective. And it can be confusing, and it can cause a disassociation with the past, and it's not healthy at all. What we want to do is change how they think about what happened and how they feel about what happened. Okay, that's it. Happy New Year, everybody. Gosh, what is this? This is like the 4th week in January or something. So, hey, see you at Solid Gold. See you in my February class. We're going to have a very special 11-day class. I've talked about that. It's the one to go to. All right. Wrap it up, Meredith.
All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Please do send me your questions, your comments, your feedback. Love to hear from you. You can email them to me directly, meredith@yourpathhypnosis.com. You can post them in the feedback comment section just down below this video if you're watching this on calbanyan.com. You can put them on our Hypnospace in the Ask Cal group. You can put them on Facebook, and we'll get those from you. You know, there's so many ways for you to get to us. Please do send your stuff. You really help the rest of the hypnosis community to get better and better and better every time you submit those questions and we get this information out to the world. This is Meredith Locker. Happy New Year and signing off.
And I want to wrap this up with a very, very special to Meredith. I mean, she's got her practice in her home out there in LA, and she drives through all that traffic just to get up here to help you guys out. She doesn't benefit from it at all. I don't pay her. She does it just because she loves you guys. She loves the profession. And gosh, I'm so grateful to have her here with me and sharing all this good stuff with you guys. That's it. Cal Banyan signing off. This recording is a property of Cal Banyan and the Banyan Hypnosis Center for Training and Services, Incorporated. All rights reserved, for private use only, may not be duplicated without permission. For contact information, go to www.hypnosiscenter.com.